as many countries recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, South African National Survey of Research and Experimental Development has revealed that the gross domestic expenditure in research and development has risen in real terms for the first time in 4 years. In 2021-2022's year, gross domestic product intensified, reaching 0.62%. It's a slight increase from the previous year's 0.6%. The Human Sciences Research Council, however, says it has noted overall trends that concern policymakers, the decline in the business sector, research and development investment persisting. So to take this discussion further, we're going to be joined via video link by Dr. Nazim Mustafa, Chief Research Specialist at Human Sciences Research Council. A very good afternoon to Dr. Mustafa. Thanks for your time at the SABC at this hour.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Let's make sense of the facts and figures and the numbers at hand. Talk to us about the gross domestic expenditure on the research and development front. It's now having risen in real terms for the first time in 4 years.
The gross domestic expenditure on R&D is the total amount of R&D that is spent by all of the performing institutions, businesses, government, higher education, science councils. It is basically the amount of R&D that our country produces.
Yes, and so as we look at the impact that has, I mean, the value chain then gets affected. Talk to us about the impact these expenditures have on job creation, science and innovation in the country, and just the development of new industries at large.
So it has been shown that countries with a high R&D intensity, that is the R&D expenditure as a percentage of GDP, are more competitive than other countries. So if you invest in R&D and you do it at a high enough R&D intensity, that tends to spill over into strong economic growth, added jobs, and local efficiency improvements. And generally, it can lead to a better life for most people. Now, what's happened is that since 2010, our business sector has been producing less than half of the R&D expenditure in the country. Before that, it was doing more than half. And it's an indicator of a developed economy with quality of life for the business sector to produce more than half of R&D. It's gone down over the year, and it's now at about 35% of the total R&D expenditure in the country.
So as we look at the most...
However...
All right, do continue. I think there's a bit of an echo. Do continue the point before we can... I ask the next question. Sure.
However, what we have seen over the last 10 years as well is even though business expenditure on R&D is declining, it is encouraging that there is growth of R&D that is funded from abroad. Now, why is that important? That's important because that's R&D that we as a country don't have to pay for because it comes from international institutions and organizations. And most of this foreign funding of R&D has been directed at the business sector as well as the higher education sector.
And so as we look at the most notable nominal expenditures across the 5 institutional sectors, what's been reflected this time around? Even the ratio of female researchers addressing gender inequalities, the strides taken on that front.
Right, so it's to place this in context, this is the first survey result after COVID. And COVID, the economy went down drastically. That included our R&D expenditure. Now, we've seen big increases, especially in the business sector, and that is encouraging, although this comes off a very low base due to COVID. So we've seen growth in all of the sectors, but as I say, it's coming from a low base, and we don't really know what the trend is as yet. Future surveys will let us know better whether the trend is upwards or what will happen in the future. Now, our female researchers as a proportion of the total number of researchers is relatively high compared to most other countries. And this is where South Africa is very good in leading the way in terms of inclusivity of female researchers.
So I actually wanted to look at how we're faring compared to other countries globally. If we look at BRICS nations, other African countries as well, what's been reflected on that front? And if we look at the terms and conditions for some of the overseas funding, I mean, what does that mean for South Africa, just from your perspective?
Sure. So with respect to the other BRICS countries, our investment in R&D is relatively low. We are also generally a much smaller country, so that is not too surprising. But as a proportion, We are also lower than the Russians, and of course the Chinese are actually leading the way in terms of how much R&D they spend as a proportion of GDP. And in Africa, we are either the country with the highest R&D intensity, or sometimes we are the second highest. So in Africa, we do quite well.